Good morning. Please join me in Gassho. With goodwill for the entire cosmos, cultivate a limitless heart, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hostility or hate. Thus spoke the Buddha in the Bodhisattva Sutra. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandots, 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 namandots. Good morning. And I just need to start out by thanking everyone who has helped this weekend we had having in the middle of our big chicken bento fundraiser. You could probably smell it. So people have been here for the last 3 days. We have a whole team down below in the gym right now. So thank you for your help in making this be a successful fundraiser. You may notice the obupan, the rice, looks a little different. Up on the altar, it's our famous chirashi that we were working on all day yesterday, so and last night as well. So we have the essence of chicken bento with us this morning. I just returned from the National Council meeting up in Renton, Washington, which is just outside of, like a suburb basically outside of Seattle, along with our president, Keith Kojimoto, and his wife, Priscilla, board members, Susan Sakuma, and also Reverend Kobata. And along with the National Council meeting, which really just looked at BCA business and finances, et cetera, they were also having the Northwest District hosted their 73rd Northwest District Buddhist Convention, which included workshops and lectures. And one of the workshops that I attended was called Dharma for World Peace. It was a Dharma for World Peace, an interactive, culminating workshop. It was facilitated by Dr. Eric Hammerstrom. The Sanskrit word for dana, it connotes the virtue of generosity. So this can take many forms. It can take generosity with our thoughts, generosity with our speech, generosity with our actions. Dana could be monetary, or it could be through volunteering, like many folks have done this past several days with chicken bento. It could be giving a voice or hope to those who are powerless and voiceless. The workshop I thought was very cool and very contemporary. We logged onto our smartphones and tablets, and we were able to participate in this group discussion with our opinions, our feelings, and the results were instantly tabulated on this big screen. So instantly we would know how the group was feeling in terms of social justice, et cetera. And so this workshop looked at social engagement activities from our Shin temples and how temple members actually feel about it. And while different folks gave a variety of opinions, from support to no support on the subject of social justice engagement, there was a youth table. And at the end, after we were all done computing everyone's thoughts and feelings and having it shown up on the screen, they went around to different tables because we had small table discussion. And the youth table just blew me away. The youth said that we have a moral responsibility to speak out as Shin Buddhist. And they referenced their ancestors who were persecuted during World War II in the concentration camps. And so these kids were so clear. There was nothing unequivocal about what they were saying. They said, we as Shin Buddhists have a moral responsibility to speak out and to do whatever we can to engage in social justice issues. They were so clear about their responsibility as Shin Buddhists to each other and to our larger global community. I don't know if any of you read, I hope some of you read, the Gomonchu's New Year's message in last month's Wheel of Dharma. And I was struck by the article when he wrote, quote, "A considerable amount of time has passed since the Japanese immigrated overseas to America, and the lifestyle of their descendants, as well as the world situation, have changed greatly." And then he spoke of the universality and non-discriminatory essence of our Shin teaching, concluding, quote, In this year, let us continue to listen to the Dharma, considering it is directed to each one of us, and to keep moving forward, to share it with as many people as possible, to keep moving forward. Tradition doesn't change with time. Rather, it continually reinvents itself from earlier sources. It keeps moving forward. You can just look at the history of Buddhism in the East, where everywhere it went, each country it went into, it impacted the culture, and the culture impacted it. In fact, nowhere in the world is anyone practicing Buddhism in Gandhari, which is what we think the ancient language that the Buddha spoke in. Looking at Buddhism in the US, we can use our Shin tradition as an example. Shin has reinvented itself here in America. When Shinshu came to the US, it did reinvent itself in accordance with the dominant culture at the time. They don't have Sunday-only services at our mother temple, the Honganji, in Kyoto, Japan. In fact, they have daily services. They don't have an organ and piano, and they sing gathas during their service, like our Shin temples do here in the US. They don't stand like some of our Shin temples do, or sit when the three treasures are recited. They don't have pews that everyone can sit in or on. Folks in Kyoto sit on tatami mats. They've started having folding chairs in the back of the hondo for people that have a difficult time sitting, seiza. And because they have tatami mats at the Nishi Honganji, one doesn't keep their shoes on when attending service, like we do here. They don't have 15, 20, 30-minute Dharma talks like we do. They have very brief, basically 5-minute or so Dharma messages, and the priests that give them are trained explicitly, specifically for giving those Dharma messages. And generally speaking, a major difference I see with Buddhism in the US is that there seems to be less sectarianism here rather than in Japan. We engage more in intra-faith and interfaith here in the US. Interfaith is engagement between different Buddhist traditions in schools. So when I think about it, like how many people here showed up to hear Reverend Duncan Williams, a Zen priest, give a Dharma talk about his wonderful book, American Sutra, right? That's intra-faith. I know temple members who go to hear the Dalai Lama speak whenever he's here in the Bay Area. That's intra-faith. I know folks that have gone to teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh from our tradition that go, a Zen master. That's intra-faith. Our BCA organization frequently hosts wonderful lectures and teachers from different Buddhist traditions. And in my MAP Tokudo training, one of our retreats included teachings from a priest from the Higashi, our sister school in Kyoto, allowing us to experience their rituals, the similarities and the differences. And it was quite a beautiful experience. We also had a teaching from a priest from the Jodo Shu, Honin's Pure Land School. So this idea of intra-faith, right? The message is the same. The expression of that message is different. And so to be able to recognize that and appreciate, I think, is a really wonderful thing that has been offered to us. Also, the BCA hosts an annual Vesak, which is celebrates Hanamatsuri, Buddha's birth. And that's where all these different Buddhist traditions come together and celebrate at the JSC. So I think we're living the universal oneness that we chant about each week. The Gomonchu's acknowledgement of changing times and his encouragement to keep moving forward really resonated with me. I keep thinking about an article that I read many years ago, actually, but it still stays with me. It was written by a Zen teacher who was lamenting about the lack of Buddhist help during Hurricane Harvey. So this was in 2005, right? So 15 years ago, he was talking about this. And this teacher, wanting to help in some way, had been volunteering with a Catholic soup kitchen in New Orleans and was saddened that he couldn't find a Buddhist organization to volunteer with. He said that in Buddhism, we talk so much about compassion, but we often keep it close to our hearts, sharing it with just our families and our Sangha. And so in his article, he invited fellow Buddhists to move off of their meditation cushions, move out of our temples, move out of our Dharma centers, to serve in whatever way we can our larger suffering communities. And this article really touched me. And I think it influenced and encouraged me on some level to begin my work in chaplaincy, to begin my work volunteering in the jails, and also my involvement with San Francisco Interfaith Council, along with Reverend Kobata, serving our homeless neighbors, living and dying on our San Francisco streets. This isn't to say that we haven't done anything as followers of Shin to help our extended communities. During the devastating AIDS crisis, Zen Hospice was on the cutting edge, the front line of providing compassionate care and ensuring that no one dies alone. And our own BCA gave Hartford Street Zen Center a large grant to start one of the first hospices in San Francisco at the start of the AIDS crisis. And our BCA has its Dharma fund giving monies to organizations helping those in immediate crisis situations like fires and floods. And two weeks ago, BCSF here prepared a home-cooked hot meal for those unsheltered and living on the cold February streets in San Francisco, the winter shelter. And by the way, we have another opportunity to serve. We've been given another date. They needed someone to help out at a shelter, a smaller shelter, only 40 men, March 16th. So stay tuned for more information. So if someone would like to either help serve or help prepare the meal, please see me after service. We welcome all the volunteers. So I'm not saying that we haven't done anything, but as 2020 unfolds, I invite you to look at how individually and collectively we're living out our teachings. In the Gomonchi's article, he said, Amida Buddha's compassion equally reaches and non-discriminately embraces everyone in the midst of all sorts of pain and agony. In this year, let us continue to listen to the Dharma, considering it is directed to each one of us, and keep moving forward to share it with as many people as possible. So how do we share our teaching? I would argue in 2020, it's not through proselytizing, but rather through how we live our life, how we model our life. To me, Shin is about simultaneously awakening to both the reality of my limited karmic existence and to the working of Amida Buddha's original vow, that Bodhisattva vow of boundless compassion. Last month, I had lunch with a friend from down south, Southern California, who had been involved in protesting the inhumane and traumatic child separations at our southern border, as well as working with Suru for Solidarity, the crane making for peace and compassion. And he said that some of his temple members were getting pushback from other members saying that we shouldn't take up these issues, asking why should we get involved? And my friend asked me, how should I answer them? How would you as a Shin priest answer that? And I reflected for a few moments, and I said to him, in our Jodo Shin tradition, it's in the Mahayana lineage, the tradition of the Bodhisattva. Amida's primal vow of boundless compassion is none other than the Bodhisattva vow. If we really entrust ourselves to this vow, if we really surrender, if we really accept this vow, then how can our hearts not be touched by the suffering of others? In the larger Pure Land Sutra, also known as the Sutra of the Buddha of Immeasurable Life, it's written, you should extensively plant roots of virtue in this world, be kind and be generous, with tolerance, patience, diligence, and wisdom. You should encourage one another in doing noble deeds. Not as a practice, but as a response to the infinite compassion supporting and sustaining us. Reverend Kenyo Sato, in his commentary on Shinran's Tani Sho, says that Since reading the Nembutsu with gratitude is the very foundation of the Shin Buddhist way of living, it can be said that Shin Buddhists live their whole life with thanks. Not only the Nembutsu, but every act they perform is an expression of gratitude. By virtue of being Shinshu in the Mahayana lineage, altruistic spiritual practice is embodied in the ideal of the Bodhisattva. So, in this new year full of division, tribes, separation, and hostilities, may we continue to recognize that every human being possesses intrinsic value and dignity. May we continue to share peace and loving kindness within our families, our friends, even with strangers, and most especially with those struggling on the margins of society. And may we plant roots of virtue in both our immediate and our larger communities. There's a recent article from Professor Jeff Wilson in the winter issue of Lion's Roar magazine. Professor Reverend Jeff Wilson is a ordained minister in the Nishihonganji tradition, our tradition. It's called Amida Buddha Welcomes All Refugees. And Reverend Wilson explains how the Jodo Shinshu school of Pure Land Buddhism emerged from the refugee experiences of its two founders, Shinran and Renyo. Shinran became a refugee when he was defrocked and banished to Echigo in 1207. And Renyo, well, in 1465, warrior monks from monastery temples on Mount Hiei attacked and destroyed Renyo's temple, and Renyo barely escaped with his life. And for years, he was forced to flee from place to place as a refugee and a migrant, frequently homeless and always in danger. Renyo's poverty and experience as a refugee left a deep imprint on his Dharma teaching. Whereas other Buddhist teachers of the time taught from high platforms, Renyo sat on the ground amongst his followers, who were commoners. He personally served them sake and listened to their troubles. We have so much to learn from Shinran, Honen, Renyo, Lady Tatako Kujo, and many other Shin followers of the Nembutsu, from past and present. I'd like to close with a reading from Shinran, our founder, written in his major work, Kyogyo Shinsho. Here, Shinran is discussing the 19th vow, and the two descriptive names for the vow come from Shinran himself. He writes, "Hereupon Shakyamuni Buddha revealed and expounded the store of virtue, wherewith to lead the ocean of multitudinous beings. We already have the compassionate vow. It is called the vow of performing virtuous deeds. It is also called the vow of sincere aspiration." Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandots. 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 Thank you.